Welcome to the DTS Fitness Education Podcast. I am Ben McDonald, and I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. John Berardi.
Ding,
How are you, John?
Ding. Good, man. Good. I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to connect with you. It's great to, what do they say, drop some knowledge bombs.
Oh, is that what we're doing? I'll leave the knowledge bombs to you, mate. I think that'll work out a little better.
Nice. Well, man, thanks for having me. It's great to connect again, and I'm really excited to just delve into nutrition and fitness and all the things, and hopefully the listeners get some value out of this.
That's what it's all about, my mate. Knowledge, the application of knowledge is what makes it powerful, John. So let's get some bites out of it. Okay, so John, I think, as I said to you before we started the recording, I think for me to sit here and talk about your accolades and the stuff that you've done in the fitness industry, I mean, I could ream stuff off and we'd be here for a significant amount of time. What I'm going to do is that's going to be in the description of the podcast. So anybody, I think anybody who's into health and fitness has heard of Precision Nutrition, has heard of John Berardi. So I think we can cut to the chase, mate. How does that sound?
I don't know, man. It sounds really good to me for people to talk about all the amazing things I've done. You know, can we spend 18 or 22 minutes on that? No, I'm kidding, man. Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's get to it. You know, and again, like you say, for people who don't know, where the hell you been?
You've been under a rock. What's been happening? Okay, so I've wrote some questions down, John. So we'll get started. So, question number one to you. What's the best way to get lean, John, in your opinion, and your thought process behind it?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. It's a great jumping off point, I think, because it's going to allow us to put a little subtlety and nuance into that question. Because obviously clients are going to ask that of coaches. And 100%. A lot of coaches are even going to ask that, right? And, I mean, it depends on what best you're looking at, right? You want to know the fastest way to lose fat? Get liposuction. That's really fast. It's easy. You know what I mean? You just go to a place, some guy takes it out, you wake up an hour later, it's gone.
And he makes soap out of it, John. Did he make soap out of it?
And so, I mean, that's an answer. What's the fastest way to lose fat, right? So, but obviously it's not a satisfying answer. And that fat was likely to come back. But why is it likely to come back? Well, it's likely to come back because we didn't change any patterns or behaviors in the person's life that accumulated the fat in the first place. And so now let's look at exercise and nutrition as a way, not liposuction. And the fastest, best way, I think most professionals in the space already know the answer to that. It's be in a calorie deficit, do a mixed modal exercise, so do some kind of high intensity sprint training, let's call it, do some kind of strength training, do some kind of endurance, fat burning zone, and you mix those up. And, that might look like a walk with your partner after dinner, strength training 3 times a week, and throw in a HIIT session or 2 on top of that. And then of course, caloric deficit. So watch what you're eating, eat adequate amount of protein, lots of fruits and vegetables. Now I'm getting boring, right? We all know all this stuff already, right? So get a calorie deficit, do mixed modal exercise, and that's really is the best way to lose fat and get in shape. But I suspect it's a lot of coaches listening, and for those of you who've preached from that particular pulpit historically, this doesn't end there, right? I mean, the whole reason that I spent the latter half of my career on change psychology is because knowing that people need to be in a calorie deficit and need to know how to do mixed modal exercise isn't enough to get them all in shape, right?
What you mean there's a difference between knowing and doing?
Sometimes, and all the things that are wrapped up in it, like as it's often been said, I could write you the perfect program, and if you're not going to follow it, then it's meaningless, it's worthless, as are you, the coach who gave it to the person who couldn't follow it. I often share this example, and I put it in my new book, which you and I talked about before, is, you know, a couple of years ago, my wife and I were renovating a house together. And so during the time we were living with her parents, we were living above their garage. And the house that we were renovating was about an hour and a half away from her parents' place. So that was a crazy time of life. You know, we'd wake up, we'd try and work. She worked, this was early days of Precision Nutrition. She worked at the company back then. And so we would work our work day, then we'd drive all the way to the house, an hour and a half, do a bunch of stuff there, and then drive an hour and a half back. So the days were full. On the weekends, we were there all day, every day. The ability to put a lot of time and planning into meal prep and even into training. You know, there wasn't really much time for training. This is it was the perfect example for me of this idea of fitness in the context of a real life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, nice.
If I would have hired you as a coach, you would have been like, oh, come on, John, let's find some time. We're going to, if you want it bad enough, we're going to make some time in your life for this. Where are we going to find those 45 minutes to get to the gym, right? There weren't 45 minutes to get to the gym. And if you would have tried to impose that upon me, we would have both resented each other. You know what I mean? You would have been like, oh, that Berardi's just lazy because you don't know what it's like to be in my life. And I'd have been like, Ben's kind of an asshole, man. He's just like, doesn't get
Lots
it.
of people say that, John. Lots of people say that, mate.
He's not trying to understand. So what I ended up doing was hiring a friend who was a coach, and I laid out the parameters. I said, hey, listen, man, I know myself here. Here's what I need. I need a workout that takes about 10 or 15 minutes. I need to be able to do it when I wake up first thing in the morning. Like, I get out of bed, I hit the floor, before my morning pee, I got to be able to knock this thing out and then be done for the day, and just three times a week, something like that. So a guy made me up a bodyweight circuit training that I did 3 times a week for 10 or 15 minutes in the morning. And I did that for the months we were renovating the house, you know, and I tried my best to eat well. And, you know, we were eating lots of meals in the car on the way to the house and on the way back. And so we just tried to stop and get the best choices we could and control our calories. And was I in my greatest shape ever? No. Did I lose everything though after 6 months, 8 months of training and eating this way? No, I was still in very good shape. So this to me is kind of an extreme example, but it actually represents, you know, the best way to get lean. The best way to get lean is to find a program that works in the context of your or your client's life. And that may not always be the ideal thing. It may not always be the beautifully periodized, you know, oh, we've got 33% of your total volume coming from low intensity and then another 33. But that's not real world in all scenarios. If you get a client who has that, who's like, hey, I've got 10 hours a week blocked aside for this. I throw elbows. You know, my boss is like, can you stay extra? Bam! Pop him in the eye. You know what I mean? When my children are like, Daddy, we want to spend some time. Let's go to the water park. Bam! It's workout time. You know, if you got a client like that, don't hang out with them personally. You know what I mean?
Hey, you might get an elbow. You might get an elbow in the eye.
That's right. But great, you can construct this beautiful program, and you know, and this even extends to athletes. You know, Krista Scott Dixon, who's a colleague of mine at Precision Nutrition, co-created the PN certification. I posted an article last week, 11 things I've learned working with professional and elite athletes. And Krista did a really nice Facebook write-up of it. And, you know, her conclusion was just, we often think even athletes need more complexity in their programming. But the truth is, if you actually know athletes, they need more simplicity. They are traveling a ton. They have a lot of cognitive demands on their time with respect to their sport, with their training. Oftentimes they like to go out and have some bubbly pops at night as well, right? They don't need more complexity in their life. They need more simplicity, just like everyone else. There's a myth that, you know, these beautifully constructed programs and nutritionally periodized options are what someone out there needs. We're like, okay, maybe not, you know, recreational Sally, but surely at the highest level of sport. I'm like, I've worked at the highest level of sport. I'm like, I've worked at the highest level of sport. I've fed, 50 NFL guys every single day. Trust me, they're not like coming to you with a notebook and their pen out and they're like, I'm ready to learn, coach. You know what I mean? They're just like, I go to Chipotle after practice. That's it. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, we're going to have to find a way to work with that.
That's fantastic, mate. I think what we say as a company is advanced skills are the basics mastered.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you can nail the basics with people, then a lot of the time you get the result with the consistency as well, John,
Yeah. And so to your original question, best way to get in shape, best way to lose fat, best way to get lean, it's consistent mixed modal exercise, and there's just so many ways to exercise. Like you can love CrossFit and you can love running at a track and you can love, powerlifting. As long as you're doing some strength training, something with high intensity, so in addition, so some low rest work, and then something that's just, sort of parasympathetic recovery oriented,
Yeah.
And you mix that up during the week, and then you control your calories somehow, and people who follow PN know we're agnostic about nutrition. If you want to keto, fine. We'll just help you keto properly. And if you want to be plant-based and you're like, keto, I'm going to eat all the carbohydrates, that's fine. We'll help you do that as well. Anyone who thinks that there's only one way here hasn't seen enough of the world. You know what I mean? Like, you can hang out with people who do great plant-based diets and are healthy and lean and strong.
Yeah.
You can hang out with people who do the opposite and they're healthy and lean and strong. And if they coexist, that must mean there's a way to make both work.
It's the coexisting that's the problem, though, John. Do you know, it's the coexisting that's the problem. We always say, when somebody asks a question, it's like, it depends. You know what I mean? It's just like, it depends.
Yeah, and it does depend. You know what always bothered me though, when people would just stop. They would go, it depends. And walk away.
And then that's it.
What's it depend on?
That's brilliant, mate. That's a great answer to question number one, mate. All right, question number two, John. What has been your biggest challenge with clients and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was the thing that changed my entire career. I started out as a personal trainer. Again, this is a big part of my new book, the story of how I got into this field in the first place. I was a terrible high school student. I was drunk and high all the time, skipping school. I never got admitted into university. And I had someone in health and fitness literally kind of pick me up out of the muck and save my life. And it started me on this path. And then, when I got in this path and I started renovating my own body, and then I started wanting to help others out. And I did what most people do. They get really passionate about the knowledge, about the sets and reps and, what about for ectomorphs and mesomorphs and endomorphs and then how do we activate the different types of muscle fibers, and then let's get into nutritional biochemistry. It's fascinating, and then the first moment that it dawned on me that I was going a little too deep into this aspect was I eventually worked my way into university by going to community college, and then I went and did a master's, and then I went and did a PhD. And in my PhD work, I was starting to work with elite athletes, and I was brought to work with the U.S. national bobsled team. They were training in Calgary, Alberta at the time. And so I went out there and I had this like 6-hour talk prepared for these bobsledders. And I was so like cutting edge. Like I was, I spent a full day every week. I would take the entire day and spend it in the stacks at the library, which back in the day, journal articles weren't online. They were just published in these bound books, right? So you maybe get 6 journals bound in a single book. Yeah. So it'd be like January through July of the Journal of Applied Physiology's publications. And I would just spend all day every Thursday at the library reading. So I was like, I knew all the latest stuff. So I made a 6-hour presentation on the cutting edge of nutrition and nutritional biochemistry and supplements and the whole deal. And we were going to tweak these pathways. And they all came in late eating McDonald's. You know? So I was like, I need a new presentation. And that was really kind of a seminal moment. And then, you know, there was also another time in my life where when I graduated from undergrad, I moved down to South Beach, Florida, and I started a personal training business. And it was going really, really well, but I couldn't help but be frustrated constantly. And this is to your point, you know, I really knew how to do great lifestyle programming for people. And if people followed it the way that I laid it out, they got great results.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe just like 2 in 10 would follow it the way that I laid it out, you know? And they were often the ones you wouldn't expect. Like you couldn't predict in advance who was going to follow it perfectly, right? And I mean, again, this is the idea of context of a real human life, because I remember there was one woman who was a client of mine. She was, you know, probably a 48-year-old at the time, realtor, right? She crushed it.
Yeah.
And then I had a UFC, and this was old school UFC, like in the early, like UFC 2. You know what I mean?
Oh, nice.
Right? So where they fought until someone died.
They were the best ones, John.
And I trained one of those guys, and he had a real hard time like following the plan. You know? So and it's interesting because I don't think it's about the person. You're not like, that woman was just very disciplined. You know, it had a lot to do with what was going on in her life. She had recently gone through divorce, so she had a bunch of free time. And so, you know, if you hit her in a different phase of her life, a few years later, a few years earlier, maybe she isn't able to follow it. So it isn't just about the person and their worthiness or laziness or whatever. It's a lot about the environmental conditions. So I started, you know, being frustrated by that. I was like, man, I'm really smart. I know how to get every person in shape, but I don't know how to get every person in shape. And that's hard. In the beginning, you just think it's because they're stupid and lazy. And then you hit a point where you're like, nah, okay. And one of my favorite exercises is to look how I'm doing the same thing that's happening over there with those clients in my own life.
Yeah.
So where am I trying to improve something in my own life? And I'm as bad as them, where I'm like missing practice or not feeling like doing it or not doing it well. And then you start to have a little bit of empathy and you go, oh, right. I have to almost be like a lifestyle engineer for this person.
Yeah.
In addition to a programmer. But I don't know how to do that. So then I started reading. And the interesting thing is, fitness is such a young field, personal training, coaching. You know, you think about it like to exercise for just pure recreation in like a fitness space is like only 40 years old. You know what I mean? So our field is this little baby field, right? So it's totally expected that we are little babies in our understanding of the human psychology around it, and even the physiology. As advanced as we like to feel, we've only been looking at this for a short period of time. And even the research tools for looking at it are not as advanced as they will be. You know?
Are you saying, John, that we don't know everything about the nervous system and the brain as personal trainers? Is that what you're saying, John?
I would never condescend to disrespect our knowledge like that. But yes, yes. You know, like chemists, I did this comparison recently in an infographic in a video. Chemistry's been around for thousands and thousands of years. Personal training and let's call it exercise for recreational fitness or whatever, 40.
Yeah.
Like that's not very long, and it's okay. And so what we have to do is borrow from other fields. In David Epstein's new book, Range, I don't know if you've checked it out yet, but it's phenomenal. I recommend it to everyone. I bought it for at least 20 people so far. You know, he talks about how the best innovators, actually the people who are having the most success nowadays aren't deep specialists, but they're generalists who can dance across fields of knowledge.
Yeah.
Because that's where what are called sort of wicked world problems exist, right? So he actually takes aim at Malcolm Gladwell, who's a friend of his, and the 10,000 hours thing that Gladwell really championed, you know, because there are certain activities which are called kind world activities, where 10,000 hours, where specific, focused, high volume of practice does lead to expertise and mastery.
Yeah.
Okay. But they're in scenarios that the rules are well known and don't change, where feedback is immediate. So you can actually learn valuable things from the feedback. And this is called like kind world learning scenarios.
Yeah.
So Tiger Woods, golf, chess, these are often the examples of 10,000 hours.
Yes.
You know, this idea, but they're games with known rules, non-changing conditions with immediate feedback.
Yeah.
The rest of the world is wicked, right? You get feedback, but it comes way too late for you to use it effectively.
100%. Yeah.
You know, and you often, and this happens in our field all the time, develop the wrong learnings and superstitions. Like, oh, find my favorite thing in nutrition, find what works for you. Well, people are terrible at doing that, right? With, let's say, fat loss, for example, it takes time. That's wicked world learning conditions. Also, the conditions change. They're not fixed. Your metabolism adjusts in response to your caloric intake and your energy expenditure. So it's always changing.
Yeah.
Right? This is wicked world stuff. So you get feedback later in a rule-changing environment. Easy to develop superstitions, learn the wrong things, you know? So all of this sort of led to my big career epiphany, which is, hey, we need to focus on change psychology, how to nudge people along this pathway in these kind of wicked world conditions, right? Where they're learning the wrong things, where they're impatient, where their life is complex and challenging and the rules are constantly changing. Okay, how can I be a lifestyle architect for them? How can I help them figure out how to plug this in and be motivated to do that and inspired to do that? But more than motivation and inspiration is have a greased pathway where the easiest path is the one of health and fitness rather than the opposite, you know? So this is a solved problem in other fields. It just wasn't in our field at all. So, you know, when we brought I think precision nutrition was a leader in that, bringing change psychology into our space. It wasn't because we were innovating that. It was just because we looked next door to fields where this knowledge was already present. And we're like, hey, look, we're going to use it over here. Is that okay? You know?
You mean you drop the ego, John? Like, because I think like the fitness industry tends to be driven a little bit by ego, my friend. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So if you drop the ego and just look at what works, then why not utilize it? You know?
Yeah, totally. Yes, and borrow from everywhere. And that, again, this is a major premise of David's book. You know, this idea. There was a cool study that folks at a major, I think it might have been 3M actually did, where they were looking at where the most innovations came from, like the most impactful innovations, because they're always trying to invent new technologies and patents and things like that. And the most innovations came from people who were crossing disciplines constantly. Yeah. You know, so they're like, oh, I'm not a physical scientist, but I can talk with some physical scientists and I can learn what they know. And my background's in chemistry, and that's cool. And I use a little bit of that. And they're like, and then I hang out with some engineers, and then they can cross-pollinate this knowledge, and then they come up with these innovations. And I find the same thing is true, interestingly, in our space as well. You know, the people who come up with real breakthroughs usually borrow them from a different field and then apply it here. And then it's like, oh, man, that's a new way of thinking. How come I never thought about that before? I should have thought of it because it's all I do all day. But that's the problem. It's all you do all day. Right?
Yeah, look, can't see the wood for the trees, John.
Yeah.
Can't see the wood for the trees. So number three, John, I think you've covered this. Like, I think you may have covered it, but if you can recap and just boom, what are your top 3 things a coach or trainer should focus on for the biggest result? So that's like top 20% of your interventions giving you the top 80% of your result.
Yeah, totally. I think, you know, obviously, you know, there has to be a physical process that takes place. So, you know, when we're talking about, let's have a whole bucket of like body recomposition. During that process, people obviously want to get stronger and more confident and healthier in the process. So let's say there isn't a specific goal, like I want to win a bodybuilding contest or, you know, squat 1,000 pounds. we'll take those off the table for a minute because that's a different set of things. But
100%.
Health, fitness, strength, fat loss, recomposition. I mean, it's like you said, easy, straightforward. People have to be in a caloric deficit. Well, how do you get them there is important. Okay. So some kind of controlled intake, right? And some kind of mixed modal exercise. And again, I know CrossFit's kind of, and that community have claimed the idea of mixed modal. So I'm not talking about within a workout necessarily. I'm just talking about you go for a walk sometimes, you lift some weights sometimes, and you do something with low rest intervals sometimes.
Yes.
And then on the nutrition front, you have to get adequate protein. If your fats are going to be high, your carbs should be lower. And if your carbs are going to be high, your fats should be lower. Lots of fruits and vegetables. And we know this stuff, right? So you tackle the physical process there, right? And then the third would just be fitting in the context of the person's life. And everyone's life is slightly different that way. And so what does that look like? It's like, okay, cool. If we'd like them to get moving 5 times a week, my favorite question is, after we've sort of co-created a plan with the clients, which is a big part of what we call client-centered coaching, the idea that the client is an active participant in the recommendations that come up. And people always like, yeah, that sounds all nice when you say it, JB, but clients usually don't know what to do. And I'm like, duh, that's why they're sitting with you. It's co-creating. You're not saying, what would you like to do next? And they're like, pizza. And you're like, great, pizza. No, that's not how this works.
That sounds like my sort of coach, that, John, to be honest, mate. You know what I mean?
It's about co-creating, right? So you put a bunch of options on the menu that are relevant to their life and lifestyle and goals, and you let them choose, and then you go back and forth. And the way you go back and forth is you confidence test. So you're like, okay, cool. I think based on what we talked about for your goals, if we had you moving 5 times a week, here's how this would lead to what you're trying to achieve. But this is where most coaches stop. It's where doctors stop. It's where everyone stops. But then what you have to do is say, okay, client, so I just have a question before we leave with this. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being no way in hell, 10 being, of course, a trained monkey could do that. How confident do you feel that you can do this, for the next 2 weeks? And then you let them rate it. And if they give you a 5, then you're just a big dummy if you go ahead with that prescription. You know what I mean? Like the client just told you, I can't do it. And you're like, give it a try anyway. You know what I mean? This to me has been the biggest game changer in the mid part of my career, where I was just like, why aren't I asking clients if they feel like they can do the thing that I'm about to tell them to do? It's because I never think of it, because I suspect it's a philosophical problem that our industry has, which is we think our work stops at the prescription. Yeah. It doesn't. It stops at the implementation, the successful implementation. So really for me, the psychological shift became, I'm going to take responsibility for the outcome, not just the prescription. Great. I'm not going to think, well, I gave them the plan, and if they can't do it, it's on them. I'm going to think it's on me all the way. If I have a difficult client who's not doing it, or doing it half the time, it's on me to figure out how to get them to do it all the time, or figure out how to be successful in half the time.
John, I think that is to hear that is crazy refreshing, brother, because it's like, historically in the industry, it's like, why are your clients not losing weight, or why are your clients not doing? It's like, well, it's their fault. You know what I mean? They're not doing this, they're not doing the stuff that I told them to. If you don't get it, there's a T-shirt somewhere that says, if you don't get the result, go do what your trainer said the first time. Do you know what I mean? It's just right. You're like, mate. So to hear that, mate, is super refreshing. That's excellent.
Yeah, and it's hard to stick. I mean, what it means is, for a lot of our professionals, and it meant it for me too. So this isn't me just preaching or feeding you dog food that I'm not willing to eat myself. To say, shit, I've been doing this wrong. Okay, if I want to move into a more hopeful future for my business and my career, I have to eat the humble pie, check my ego, whatever you want to call it, and move forward with this new understanding of my role in the industry. I want to be successful at I mean, if you want to drop out, if you want to be part of the 40% of health and fitness professionals who lead the field every year, then don't do what I'm saying here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, mate.
This is a great path. If you've been thinking of changing careers, just keep doing this. The career is going to just spit you out. No problem. You won't even have to pick. It'll just pump you out here, you know? But if you really want to look at a hopeful future for yourself in this field, this is step one. It's say, all right, wait, I'm accountable all the way through. And if the client isn't succeeding, then I need to engineer this whole thing so that it fits with their lifestyle. So, you know, again, what are the top 3 levers? There's obviously exercise, there's obviously nutrition, and then there's lifestyle fit, you know, engineering this for their lifestyle. And if you forget the third one, then 1 and 2 are completely irrelevant.
Right. No, I think that's fantastic. And I put a little extra question in for you, which is great because you've not got this one. So, but I think you've virtually just answered it. Do you think that sort of engineering it for the client's life, do you think that's the biggest opportunity that you see with trainers in the industry right now? That's something that they're not doing?
Yeah, I think it is the biggest opportunity. You know, I mean, I think it's what Precision Nutrition built a $300 million business on. You know, if we were just teaching the science of nutrition, those textbooks are already written. Nobody needs to come see us. You know, but what we've done is we've realized that, yes, obviously you have to learn the basics. So you know, the textbook covers, half the textbook is the science of nutrition coaching in a really unique and applied way. But the rest is this. It's about coaching. It's about change psychology. It's about lifestyle design. It's about asking the right questions and saying the right things so you don't raise client resistance, so you actually lower it. You know, for me, I had this huge epiphany in my career where it was really weird. It probably is the one that hit me the hardest in the ego. And it was this idea, like I always assumed that if I was passionate and I cared a lot about my clients, the worst I could do is be neutral in terms of helping them change. So maybe I wasn't helping them change, but I wasn't making them worse. I was in the middle, I was neutral. And then I remember reading something. It was the work of the motivational interviewing folks, where they were saying that often the most passionate, caring people are making clients less likely to change. And I was like, saying what? You know what I mean? Like I'm not like an evil taskmaster who's getting in the way. Wait, you're saying there's the potential that as much as I care and as passionate as I am, I could be making it harder for someone to change with my words, with my coaching, with my instructions. Like well-intended coaches could be taking people, if they're a 5 out of 10 on readiness to change, to a 2.
Wow.
Shit. And then they listed the ways, and I'm like, I'm doing these. You know? And so it just made me realize this was the huge opportunity to use language, to use, I call it coaching proximity, but it's kind of the coaching relationship, to get you at 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 on willingness, readiness to change versus moving you from 5 to 2, which is a lot of what I was doing before.
Yeah, I think that'd be advantageous if you could do that, John. Do you know what I mean?
It's true. And a lot of it comes down to, I mean, what do we do wrong? Often in our passion, we argue for change. So if you're, on the fence and you're like, John, I'm really excited for this, but sometimes it feels hard. And we're like, no, it's not hard, man. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is look on the bright side. We start arguing for change. What ends up happening is people argue against change.
Yeah.
And the more excited we are about trying to convince them of our way, and you've seen this in every aspect of your life, the more devil's advocate the other person will play, right?
Right, yeah.
We'll be like, and my favorite example is after we get off here, I'm going to go get my haircut, okay? And so
I won't be, John. I won't be going to get my haircut.
So my wife, whenever my hair starts to get long, and she's like, you should go get a haircut. Even if that morning I was thinking about getting a haircut, I'll delay it a week just because she said that. You know what I mean? Like when she starts arguing for me to change, I'm like, forget you. I'll do it on my own terms. And that's how we are as humans, you know, and the stronger someone argues, the less likely we are to actually do the thing. So we actually start saying out loud how we're not intending to change in response to our coach's promptings. They're blowing sunshine at us and we're like, wait, hold on, buddy. And they're slowing down their own process. So, you know, a lot of the times it's about coaches entering into this space in a way that helps clients start to talk out loud how they're going to change, how they plan on it, how they want to, rather than the opposite. And again, a lot of it has to do with sort of a certain kind of dispassionateness. It's not caring, but it's not showing how excited you are. And, you know, a lot of coaches in our field are young and don't have kids yet, but I have 4. And I know what this is like. You know, you see it at the kid level all the time. You know, if your kid's on the fence about doing something, the stronger you try and convince them, the less likely they are to end up doing it, right?
100%.
With clients, you know? So this is it. This is the huge opportunity. It's a big frontier. There's a lot of knowledge. It's exciting to learn this stuff. And even more exciting than learning it is when you actually do it with a few clients and you're like, what? My job is easier all of a sudden. This is great.
Well, anything makes my job easier, John, I am absolutely up for. You don't have to convince me to do that at all, my friend.
Yes, indeed. And, you know, just imagine if it was easier to interact with clients, way more fun, they were getting better results. And then they went out and told all their friends about how great you are and how easy it's been and how they should come see you. I mean, that's just the holy grail of coaching, right? And so it all stems from change psychology. You know, obviously you need to know the physical stuff enough, you know? But again, as I said, without knowing this stuff, all of that's rendered irrelevant, which is sad because you spend a lot of money on continuing education.
I've got that, mate. I've got it. So, John, it's been like, I know you say like you just said there, mate, I stopped at 2 kids and then I was like, that's enough for me. Do you know what I mean? Like you're married, 4 kids, you're flaming launching stuff here, there and everywhere. What is it that you're up to at the moment, mate? What's new with John Berardi?
Yeah. So, I mean, most people know me as the precision nutrition guy. And back in 2017, I mean, precision nutrition had grown so much that it was getting to the point where it was just 2 founders and I, you know, Phil Caravaggio and myself. And like financially, it's difficult to float a company that big from like your own personal wealth. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, if something goes wrong, like me selling everything I own doesn't even put a dent in fixing the problem, you know? So yeah, you have to go out and look for people with money, you know? And so a partner came in, bought about 80% of the company. So Phil and I own only a small percent of precision nutrition now. And that was great because essentially it put PN in the position to grow the way that it has the last few years, reach more people, do even better work. So, I mean, it's beautiful for everyone. And so we're not involved operationally at all. So literally I just attend a quarterly board meeting, which is great. You know, everyone tells me how good things are going. And
do you have to wear a shirt and tie for that? Or can you just go in your shorts and a t-shirt?
The only time I've ever done that was when I was young and stupid and thought that was what made me a professional. I show up in what I'm wearing right now, a workout shirt. And so, you know, in the time off, if you want to call it off, you know, I had a little break and I realized, you know, my purpose really, you know, when I honed in on it and realized what it was, you know, the health and fitness industry and some people in it really changed my life, saved my life. And so I feel a deep loyalty and commitment to this field, you know, so when I had the opportunity to sell PN, make a lot of money, and quite frankly, never have to work again, the first thing I thought in my mind was, how do I continue to help the field? You know, it's been so good to me. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go peace out on an island somewhere. How do I continue to help? This might actually be a great thing to raise my ability to help, you know? So, and very specifically, 3 things really occurred to me. And this is what I was trying to do at PN as well. was I wanted the coaches within the industry to learn how to see their clients differently. And we talked a lot about that today.
Yeah.
Second thing is I wanted them to see themselves differently. You know, I mean, historically, this has been a little side. Personal training is a hustle. It's a side hustle. You do a little this, a little that. But that sucks. This is life-changing work. These are people who change lives. And they can't even make enough money and have enough of a career to like support a family on it. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know? And so for me, it's helping coaches see themselves differently, helping them see their clients differently, and then sort of shaping this industry in a way that this can become a real career. And it might not look the way it does today, but that people can actually make a living here doing great, meaningful work that feels important and that is important. And so I realized, I know a lot about this and I can share a lot about this. So I started writing a book, and the book's ready now. It's called Changemaker, and it's about turning your passion for health and fitness into a real purpose and a successful career. And nothing like it exists. I mean, there's people out there teaching business, and to me, it's teaching the X's and O's of business, just like teaching the X's and O's of training. But what I'm really fascinated with is career, you know, not forcing everyone to become a fitness entrepreneur, you know, because that's the only path. There's so many pathways to success in this field. And the way to figure out for you the right pathway is to do a little bit of work on purpose, unique abilities, and values. And this stuff changed my personal life when I really realized, hey, what is my purpose? Okay, I want to work towards that. But how? Well, I have to figure out what my unique gifts are. And so they serve this purpose. And then I have to figure out what my values are, because what happens when you get your purpose and your unique abilities in alignment is the danger is you work all the time. You love what you're doing so much, you work all the time. Your values become like these guardrails, right? To protect against, you know, losing relationships and not spending time on the other important things in your life. So, you know, I wanted to set down everything I've learned in 30 years in the field, everything I've learned growing a couple $100 million business in the field, share that using deeply personal stories, the actual lessons I learned, rather than just telling you what you ought to be doing, and help people. Because again, a lot of people get into fitness to help people, but I wanted to be very specific about who I wanted to help. And that's what I think part one of purpose is for everyone listening. Helping people isn't a good enough purpose. You can be a paramedic and help people, or a barista and help people, because people love more their coffee. You know, you can work in fitness to help people. Who? You know, for me, it's helping the professional. That's what's always resonated with me. That's what's really been the sort of driving force in my career. And so now it's like I have a huge opportunity to do that now. So I put the book together, Changemaker, to help people turn this passion that they feel into something real. You know, maybe they can support their life doing this thing that they should be doing, you know. And
that's a bonus if you can do that, John. If you can pay your bills by training and coaching people, that's dream, that's right? Excellent, eh?
That's the dream, right? And so and then spun up a brand around the Changemaker Academy, you know, which basically jumps off from the book, and we have some courses and events and things like that going on. So that's really phase 2 of my life here, which is really exciting for me, because it even allows me to tackle this purpose of helping coaches see themselves differently and their clients differently, and changing the industry. And incidentally, I don't feel any need to be recognized for any of this. I just, when I often have this phrase, when I die or retire, you know, I just like to know that some of my work started that snowball rolling, you know, down the hill. I don't need any credit for it. I just want to know it happened, you know, because then this young field will start to grow up, you know, and I do think of it almost like a child's journey, like a human's journey. You know, you start out young and you're excited and exuberant and you're learning about the world and everything is interesting, but you also have a hard time focusing, and you don't have any maturity and you don't have any wisdom yet. And, you know, I'd love to help bring some of that into the space. So I'm starting with this book, you know, and then moving on to some services and coaching around that.
Fantastic. So that's Changemaker.
Yeah.
By John Berardi, and then you've got the academy as well. That sounds outstanding, mate. I think if we can recognise, a lot of the time we say as DTS Fitness Education, the coaches are on the pointy end. They're on like the pointy end of the stick when it comes to health and fitness and health and longevity. I mean, our vision statement is longevity and pain-free movement for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So we spend miles more time than anybody else in the health and fitness field with our clients. Like doctors may see them an hour a year, you know. So if we can impact those clients in a way and guide them on that journey, and then the stuff that you do, John, is making us as coaches and trainers realize our potential and our passions as well. I think that's phenomenal, mate. I think the two go sort of hand in glove. That's excellent, mate. So we'll have a link to the book and all that sort of stuff in the description, John. So
that's anybody. Perfect. I put together for listeners here like a free chapter and some bonuses and stuff. So folks,
brilliant.
Before they drop the dollars on the book, I'm not sure. Berardi sounds all right, but money's tight. We can throw in the link and they can download. I put together packages, a couple free chapters from the book, some Q&A, some bonuses. So you don't have to spend any money to start learning. And we can share that with everyone listening in the show notes. And maybe that'll give them a good start.
That's fantastic, John. And you've always got to say to people, would you like a little bonus when you do that sort of stuff? And then the bonuses for all the listeners that they'll get free chapters and that access to that package. That's brilliant, John. So now we come to the point that you've been waiting for.
I've been waiting.
The questions.
What am I waiting for?
The questions that matter, John. And I think for you, the question is going to be, who would win a fight between a great white shark and a saltwater crocodile? And you can't just say a great white or a saltwater. You've got to tell me why, John.
You see, you thought these questions were going to stump me. You thought you were going to bring something that I don't spend a good 25% of my life on. I'm not a marine biologist, but my 5-year-old, Graydon, he loves animals, and he has a book series, 30 of these things. Who would win?
Oh, mate, I didn't even know. But I love the way you've researched it and everything. This is brilliant.
Like the other day, we explored who would win a grizzly bear or polar bear. We've got all these. So according to the experts at the Who Would Win series, the great white wins easily. Weighs way too much to get rolled by the croc. Way bigger mouth, bite strength. It's no contest. This is a mouse versus an elephant,
John, I like that. Do you know what? Because normally people go, well, I think, and then sometimes people will say, how deep's the water? You know what I mean? And you're just like, I've actually researched this. Like, my son's got books on it.
You have to assume there's a great white. Like, if the croc and the great white are going to fight, they're fighting on the great white's turf. You know what I mean? And a croc can't compete there. You got anything better? Than this?
Mate, that's it. Yeah, you just completely blow me, pardon the pun, but blow me out of the water. Do you know what I mean? That's fantastic, John. I can't tell you, John, how much I appreciate you taking your time today, mate, and coming on, speaking to me and speaking to the guys. So one more time, the name of the book is?
Changemaker. Turn your passion for health and fitness into a powerful purpose and a wildly successful career.
Fantastic. And we'll have the link to the little bonus package in the description. And I'm going to leave it, John, with a go John Berardi. Nice one, my mate. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for watching, guys. And remember, DTS Fitness Education are a fitness education company. So if you want a little knowledge applied and you want to get into a little longevity and pain-free movement for everyone, subscribe, click, like, share, do all that sort of stuff.